So just a few household rules quickly. As you guys know, this event is 1.5 core competencies of CCU credits. So in order to have a certificate at the end, you need to participate for at least 80% of the time. And if I don't see anyone calling from the phone number, so that's not applicable. Because if they did, they would need to email me their name and information so they can get the certificate. Other than this, let me introduce our incredible speakers that I am personally very excited and honored that they said yes, I'm going to present today, all the way from United Kingdom. No particular order in my presentation, just going to go alphabetically here. So Jenny Bird. Jenny Bird has been a coach since 2000, and she became an MCC since 2006. She has been at the forefront of the development of coaching in the United Kingdom. Her signature style includes original creative work, which expands clients' thinking and responses. Her consultancy, JB Executive Coaching, offers all the coaching programs and practices an organization needs to set up, support, and sustain a coaching culture. Jenny is also much in demand as a coach supervisor. Keep in mind, whoever might need it. Working with both internal and external coaches, individually and in groups, to support development and the most rigorous professional standards. Jenny has presented at numerous conferences and webinars, internationally sharing original approaches and fostering excellence in coaching and communication. And Sarah, hope I pronounced it correctly. Gornall. Sarah is a PCC and she is a highly experienced coach and supervisor. Sarah is at the leading edge of coaching in the United Kingdom. Described by clients as calm, wise, and inspirational, she has a successful track record in highly accountable leadership positions and served on the UK ICF board for 6 years as a president in 2018 and 2019. Sarah and Jenny run bespoke workshops to develop coaching competence and creativity across the UK and internationally. Sarah has designed an MA module in coaching and presented at a number of coaching conferences. Sarah and Jenny are co-authors of the highly acclaimed book, The Art of Coaching, a handbook of tips and tools. And we guys are very lucky because we're going to get a discount code, just the ones who are on the call, for this book. This book is on the reading list of UK coach training school and universities. They both also are co-authors of How to Work with People and Enjoy It. Sarah is the co-author of 2 other books, one of which focuses on coaching in school settings. It is a great honor for us to be able to host such an incredible event for both of you and for our chapter members. And thank you for giving us this opportunity to learn from you and get a little bit of your wisdom. And the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anastasia. And we can see people still coming in. And what we really like is if you're not in the middle of your lunch, please turn on your camera so that we can see you rather than just your names. And in a little while, there'll be an opportunity to come off mute so that we can not only see you, but also hear you. We're going to ask you to put into the chat bar how you are feeling as you arrive. 3 words. How are you feeling as you arrive in this space for us to do some great thinking and coach practice together? And I can see them coming up. Oh, it's not. It's Anastasia saying, how are you feeling as you arrive? 3 words, please. Curious, says Sven. And some more. Curious, happy, intrigued. Oh, Chris snuck in an extra word. Yeah. We like the rebels.
It's very good. Yeah.
From Barcelona, how lovely. Feeling far away and close at the same time. Well, Barcelona is pretty close to the UK in global terms. I spoke at at the Spanish ICF conference was it in Barcelona or was it in Madrid? It was in Barcelona in 2012. Seems an awful long time ago. A few more coming in. Do put 3 words into chat about how you're arriving in this space today. I see learning mode, ready to learn, excited and happy, interested and happy, curious, intrigued, interested. Lovely.
I'm curious about how you joined from Barcelona when we think we're working with Florida. What's the connection?
Pedro,
No, well, the pandemic is the connection. No, I mean, it's a great opportunity to be all over the world. I mean, to be here in South Florida so you have to trust me that I'm from now in Barcelona, but I could be everywhere.
good. And
So
are you normally in Florida?
No. I'm normally in Barcelona.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. Well, we'll come
Yeah.
and speak to ICF Spain again then. We are used to an international audience and also trotting about Europe, which clearly we haven't been doing for the last year. Okay, it seems as though maybe that's everything in the chat box. Keep it coming. We're going to use the chat box a couple of times, I think, and we invite you to save it so that you can see the wisdom that is there later on. And I'm delighted to see all those people saying they're curious, because curiosity is pretty much the basis of coaching, isn't it? We stay curious with our clients. So as we come together, we've just been hearing actually from Anastasia that normally you would work in person. And for a year now, we have been working entirely on Zoom and other similar platforms. We've always worked on Zoom, but this year we haven't worked anywhere else. So we're very aware as we come into this space where we're going to work together. And I'd love it if all the other people would put their cameras on, please. If you're not right in the middle of your lunch, please turn your camera on so we can really see you. We're very aware as we come into this piece of work together that we are each in a space of our own. I'm just looking around the space, the physical space and environment I'm in, and we invite you to look around your physical environment and just notice what's there. Notice what's familiar to you all around you. Notice what's interesting. And then just know that that's the space you're physically in, and it's not the space we're working in, because we're together in a different space. And then I ask you, and this is why we'd like the cameras on, to look around the Zoom space, which is where we are working. Look at the people who are here. And notice that there will be some people you know, there might be some people you don't know. You might be seeing their backgrounds and rooms for the first time. So there's something there about seeing others, all the guesses you might be making about their rooms, all the guesses we might be making about the people who haven't turned their cameras on. And somebody saying that they like the dog, which is on Chris's screen. So you've got an interesting double take there. So we've got Chris on our screen and the dog on Chris's screen. Look how far removed that takes it. And then I'm going to ask you to come into the third space, and that's the space inside you. Just close your eyes if that's useful, and just come into that space inside you where all your thinking and feeling and processing takes place. And just relax into that and take a few deep breaths as we come into deep connection and resonance together. And with that connection created, come back into the Zoom room and please come off mute. Turn on your mics or phones, because we're going to give you the opportunity to greet each other. So everybody come off mute. I don't know whether you can unmute them all simultaneously, Anastasia. And I would ask Natalie, Natalia and Shari to come off mute, please, so that we can hear everyone. I can still see some people struggling to get off. And Anastasia, you're on mute, and we're going to ask you all to greet each other in whatever way you like, but a fairly loud way. So thank you for having us. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello. It's so great to see all my friends.
Yeah. Lovely to see your friends. Lovely to see people we haven't met before. Lovely to have the connection. Lovely to be working with you. Fantastic.
So I think we move on to me possibly now.
We possibly do. You get to speak.
And one of the things that I'm feeling as I come into this webinar is warm. I'm warm because of the welcome we've had, and I'm warm because most of you are in a place that is warmer where I am. And somehow over the cosmos, through the atmosphere, some of that warmth is reaching me. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of a PowerPoint which explains some of the process that Jenny and I are involved in, and which we use a lot in our coaching, the creativity bit, and then hand over some of that to Jenny as well. And we're going to do a demo and then give you some practice in breakout rooms. So I think possibly about 15 years ago, Jenny and I first met, and a little later than that, we were getting to know each other professionally in various contexts. We found out that we both liked working in somewhat of the same way. That was using images and sketching and drawing with our clients. And it was at a time when this just wasn't done. It didn't obey the orthodoxy that we thought was put out there by coaching schools and by the ICF, that coaching is about words and silence. I can remember being on a supervision course and doing a piece of observed work, and I said to the client, what would that look like if you drew it? And I sort of felt the observer go, ooh, not sure they should be doing that. And for some time, I was quite reticent about talking about it. And Jenny and I were in a shared supervision group, peer supervision at that stage. And at the end of one supervision group, she said, who'd like to write a book with me about coaching using shapes? I would. And that's where it started. And we, from using really sort of fairly standard shapes like triangles and squares and circles, we moved on and we explored what we were doing with our clients, and we thought about and quizzed each other about what worked. And then we started writing a book about it. And also trying to work out what the neuroscience was that backed up why this was actually so productive. So trying to find out whether it was just a whim of our own or whether there was actually something that we could analyze that was going on that was useful to people. So this is some of the story about that. And it just takes me a moment to, oh, I've got to share the screen, haven't I? Share the screen. And it always takes me a moment to get down to the slide view bit because I have a toolbar thing that comes up. And there we go. Yeah.
Great.
So this is about why pictures help to create clarity. This is our client. Lots of learning in that knobbly head. And the client generally arrives with a great big tangle in their brain. They're trying hard to work out a problem, they're bothered by a decision, and it gives them a headache. The bit of their brain that is most at work is the prefrontal cortex, using its higher level thinking skills. and assessing risk. And part of the role of the prefrontal cortex is to inhibit inappropriate behavior and keep us safe, which is one of the reasons why it is so hard staying in that place, so hard to be creative and get new insights. Because it identifies patterns that have kept us safe in the past and tends to keep us sticking in that area. When we start to use a diagram or something visual, we know the brain is an integrated system and all the brain is firing off at once. But when we start to use a diagram or a visual, we engage the post-occipital lobe much more. And it starts processing madly. In fact, the area which it takes up when it's processing is probably about that much of the brain. Roughly 30% of the brain energy can be going on visual creation. That's about 30 billion neurons firing off when they're on their own, without all the other connections that they might be making with synapses all over the rest of the brain. Now, does that energy sap our ability to make decisions or not? Oh, no. Quite the contrary. What it does is it sneaks in somehow behind the prefrontal cortex, is risk assessing and pattern assessing behavior. And somehow it enables the prefrontal cortex to see new connections and to be creative. And that gives a burst of energy in the brain. So when people get that burst of energy, they get a dopamine release and they feel incredibly happy. The thing is, that happiness doesn't last hugely long. The energy is a burst of energy, and in the coaching space, we need to take advantage of it immediately or as soon as we can to move on. And when we can do that, it allows the clients to coach themselves and to capture their new insights and turn them into the next bit of forward movement. So how do we know? What are the various theories that are coming into all this? We all know that neuroscience is a constantly evolving field, and we find out things about it all over, almost every day. There are new bits of research. There are different theories about the brain, many of which are myths. Like the right brain, left brain bit is a myth. The brain fires up in an integrated way. And what we think we know now may be disproved or augmented tomorrow. So if we say something now, which is to the best of our knowledge, based on our reading and discussions with people who are at the cutting edge of the field, that is proved wrong tomorrow, that's just par for the course in the field. So here are some of the concepts and the theories that also help us think about why using images and visuals is just so helpful in coaching. So the first one is about how much working memory you've got. So there's a theory which is called cognitive load theory, which relates to the amount of information that you can hold on to at any one time. So apparently the brain can only hold one complex thing at a time, and it can hold a number of separated objects or bits of learning. So if you think of a week, you can think of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. As soon as you start thinking of each of those days individually, and you go on and think, well, is there another day or another day? It's actually difficult to manage what happens on all of those different days. But if you put them together as a concept like a week, you can hold that. But it's not a very complex concept, so you can treat it as an object. If you can only hold a certain amount of energy, so a week becomes a sort of schema for thinking about time. And we've got the memory which we're holding at the moment in the immediate, and we've got lots of long-term memory. And the way that we deal with things that are long-term is we make them into combinations of elements or schema. So as coaches, we may help people to work with individual items of memory, fix them into concepts, and examine the patterns or the schema that are in their past already. Visuals can help you do that because you can draw out maps of things and you can also look at them. And we'll show you how. So a current professor of cognitive neuroscience at Oxford University, Jeff Bird, says that grouping concepts, ideas into concepts may release energy for thinking. So the grouping aspect and the visual aspect both release energy, which can enable us to move forward. So this was some time ago that we read about David Rock saying that visuals reduces the energy you need for processing. That's an aspect that goes on up here too in the prefrontal cortex and maximizes the energy for thinking. Interesting. And then another reason for bringing in visuals is that it engages more than one sense. We're not just listening either to ourselves or to the coach or to patterns of words, but we're also seeing. And if you think of the brain as a bit like an orchestra, if you only use one instrument, it's a pretty thin orchestra. The more different instruments you bring in, the richer the sound of the orchestra is. So using different senses helps us to get a richer picture of what's going on and richer insights. And it also helps us to remember. And many teachers, at least in the UK at the moment, are looking at how they can involve as many senses as possible in the way they teach information, because it maximizes the chances of children and students remembering. And then this is just a little tidbit of research which I loved. If you think about schools and teachers saying, keep your eyes on the teacher, at least they used to in England, don't look out of the window while I'm talking, don't doodle while I'm talking, you might actually be inhibiting their learning process. Because looking out of the window and doodling can help you take the attention away from the hard puzzle solving stuff and allow you to enter flow. And when you're in flow, the thinking process becomes easier. So you it's again like using the visuals that we talked about earlier. It's almost as though it slips in under the radar of the prefrontal cortex. It reduces how difficult you see the problem as being, and it helps you to gain new insights and to be more creative. So do doodle. Jenny, this is your slide.
It is, Margaret. So neuroscience now talks a lot about the disseminated brain. There's the bit in our heads, and then there is the nervous system all over the body. There are also, in effect, brain cells in the gut and various other places. So it's literally true when we say I've got a gut feeling that there is a thinking process in that. And the interesting thing is that both our feeling and our thinking come from the same network, that same brain and nervous system network. We kind of tell ourselves that they're separate, and actually they aren't. We interpret them or translate them as this is a thought or this is a feeling, and they come from the same system. We also know that when we work together, our nervous systems can be regulated by the nervous systems around us, and that we can resonate together and therefore engage more of ourselves and our clients when we as coaches have deep presence. And that's one of the reasons that we invited you at the beginning to turn your cameras on so we could all see each other, to breathe together so that we potentially regulate our breathing together, and we begin to be in presence in a way that is most conducive to learning. We've got a few references there, mostly from the States. about what resonance is and how it can be used in embodied leadership. So you can go on to the next one, Sarah. And the next series is something which we think about, we've been working on, about how we make meaning in coaching and we enable the client to make meaning. So here's the client. This client is a tad distraught, its hair's standing on end and its mouth's a bit wavy. And this client has been working on a particular situation or context or puzzle for a long time. And here's the client's context. It's some kind of a mixture, and the client's been going round and round this for a long time. You know, when they turn up and they say, oh, I don't know what to do, and I can't think my way through it, and I've been puzzling about this for ages, and oh, it's been going on for a long time. They've been thinking about the same thing, and because they're stuck in their own thinking, they're probably not moving forward very much. They're probably trying to hold a lot of complex concepts at the same time and manipulate them. And from the things that Sarah's just been talking about, we know that that's very difficult to do. And so what the coach does, appearing on the outside of the system, is to be viewing it from outside and to invite the client to join them so that we're both outside the system looking in order to get literally another perspective. And some of you will have done perspectives work in various guises. And so the coach and the client together are viewing and exploring that system and wondering at it and seeing it differently and using lots of techniques like the ones we're talking about to enable different parts of the brain and nervous system to engage with what's going on. And in doing all this, what we do is to liberate for the client new awareness, new possibilities, and some shift in their thinking. We're taking them out of that repeating loop that they were in. I notice I think I've finished and I'm not sure where the slide's going. Fantastic. The slide's going to, we've talked so far, we've kept referring to drawing and sketching and so on. Anything that gets something into an image or one thing that we can call that. So it's like the schema that Sarah was talking about, you know, the 7 days of the week are 7 concepts. If we make them into a week, it's one concept. So here's another technique for doing something like that. We call them tactile imagos, and that's from transactional analysis modeling. There are coaching schools which call them this magic box or constellations. So there are lots of words for this and lots of coaches use them. And what we do is to invite clients to use artifacts or bits of something to make a map. I sometimes just call this mapping, actually, when I'm talking with the clients. And here's an example of one. Both Sarah and I have boxes of things that we offer to clients when we're allowed to meet them in person, where we say, you know, take some things and make a representation of this thing you're thinking about. Often it's a group of people, a department, an organization. And here's the one where the client chose things to represent people. And we have permission from the client to use this, of course. The client chose things to represent the people in the system. And here it is to start with, and it's a mess. It's not coherent. So this is the current situation the client was perceiving. And then as the coach and the client work together on it, we're inviting the client to say, well, how would you like it to be? What would work better? And here's the ideal system or representation of the system that the client made. It's a lovely, clean way of working. The client doesn't have to tell you, unless they really choose to, what these things represent. So they can be thinking hideous thoughts about their boss, but they don't actually have to say those out loud if they don't want to. And the client will know what that represents, and then we can begin to say, and what are the steps, what are the shifts, what are the thoughts you have as to moving towards that ideal state. And we find very often clients photograph them because then they've got the schema where I know what this means. It means nothing to anybody else, but I know what this means and I know what actions I can take to move towards it. And I think this is the one where Sarah was inviting the client to do it. And as the client worked, we try and ask very clean questions. We're not trying to get them to interpret. So Sarah asked something about where are you, or what's missing. I think you asked, did you, Sarah? What's missing in this? The client suddenly realized that they themselves were missing, went to put themselves on, bumped the table, and it was so crowded that the object representing the client fell off the table, fell out of the picture.
Jenny, it was a different thing.
Oh, it was a different one. Sorry about that.
It was a virtual one where the client only had really big things. And they had a book for this, and they had a glass for that, and they had a folder for the other, and they had the phone for themselves. And the phone fell off the table.
Yeah. And then there's something else to work with, which is, what happened then? If nothing's an accident, what happened then? What does that tell you about what your crowded scenario is? And actually, it's useful to mention that, because what we're saying is that you can do this virtually. Because we were already working virtually, we have used on Zoom and similar platforms pretty much all the creative techniques which we would use in person in the room. We use the whiteboard. As Sarah's suggesting there, we get clients to map with whatever's on their desk. And I'm just looking around my desk now, and I've got all sorts of things that could represent things. I've got pens and a pencil sharpener and some scissors and a tub of something and a phone and so on. You can make a map with anything that's there. And I think actually we started doing this because if you are meeting a client in a hotel foyer or something, they often start placing objects like the salt and pepper or a glass or a coaster or something. So they sometimes naturally begin to make a map.
I think this is where we pause, isn't it, Jenny? And maybe do a bit of a demo.
I think it is. Thank you. So in a minute, now-ish really, I'm going to ask for a volunteer coachee from the audience. And as she turns it on, we're holding the confidentiality of the content of that lovely piece of work. And we're going to have a very short time just for any questions you have, highlighting what worked particularly around the creative piece. So not mentioning the content, but just saying, what did you see Sarah doing in the use of that diagramming or mapping? Jan. And then Meredith might be moving her hair, but she might also have a hand up. So Jan first.
Hi. I want to just thank the participant. I believe that was very powerful because it gave Amelia the tools to see where she is. She knows in her heart and her head where she is, but to be able to put it on paper and to see what her path will be and how to get there. I think drawing it out seems to have made a difference. And I think that when we struggle with lots of issues at one time, that the drawing and the just putting something, using something with our hands and letting it just, it's almost like when we were kids, that's what we do. We, if you're in that whirling dervish kind of thing where you just feel everything is around you and there's no place to go, that's what it's going to look like.
Yeah. And I notice you've used a lot of words about seeing. It is absolutely isn't about seeing the thing rather than having it whirling. I also noticed that you made a most amazing map with your hands in front of you. So if I was coaching you, I'd be inviting you to talk about that map and maybe to make that map.
I'm a person who uses my hands a lot.
And sometimes people use, I know a coach who uses soft toys to make demonstrations of connections and so on. We can use a lot of creative things. And in a minute, we're going to give you the opportunity to use some of these skills. Have you got any specific questions or observations about the technique that managed to get Amelia creating that drawing?
I like, are you asking me?
I was just asking everybody that time, actually, but
And I'll stop.
let's see if anyone else wants to come in before you say more. Who has a query or a specific observation?
Paula. And I guess my question, what stunned me about it was how easy it was for Amelia to draw.
Yeah.
With, just to pick up the pen and draw. And my question is, do you find that consistently clients even that wouldn't even have thought of that as a possibility, that they usually know how to draw what they want to draw?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so. That's so amazing. That was a great demonstration. Thank you.
Actually, I've got one client who, for a long time, I suggested a visual to her once, and she said, no, I'm all about words. I'm a poet. Don't you remember? And then about 4 sessions later, she said, actually, I might quite like to draw this.
Yeah. And my second question is do you find that you engage the client in drawing in every session, or is that a situational decision that you make as a coach?
Situational.
Yeah. Okay.
It entirely depends on the way the client is describing what's going on for them. And you probably noticed Sarah used a huge proportion of words that Sarah spoke were Amelia's words.
Yes, yeah? I did notice that.
Yeah.
I did.
And so what we're doing, the client will give us clues and cues as to what we can use. So Jan was giving us a moment ago, she was doing this amazing map with her hands in front of her face. You can say, I notice you're doing that, and how might you capture that? And I think the only thing that inhibits clients is if they think they've got to make great art.
Yeah.
And they haven't. So we will often call it things like diagramming or mark making, something that doesn't sound like great art. I just want to show you, this is the first thing I pick up on my desk, is the pizza model of job distribution. And that was something a client made the other day. And to get her going on it, she kept sort of grouping things. And I said, it's looking as though there are these groups. And then she said, draw a circle around it, it's a pizza. Right. And then she worked with the image of a pizza. And she didn't even need to tell me what she was doing. She made something that looked like that thing I've got. So we're always taking a cue from them.
So usually it's creative and in the moment, and it might be that we see something from hands or visual imagery that someone's saying, and we ask them if they'd like to draw it. Sometimes an image is coming up for us, and we say something like, well, I've got an image coming up, and usually people just say, well, let me see, what is it? So it looks like this, a line across the page.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is sometimes we use visual models that are existing models that most people know about as a stimulus for thought, so for the client to interact with. And we've got a slide of the change curve, which is just a suggestion that that's something you can do with that with. But again, it wouldn't be we would go into a session and think, we're going to use this model to stimulate thinking today.
Right.
It's in our mental bank, and it would come up if it seemed appropriate in the moment, testing out the ground with the client if it's appropriate to do so before we get into it.
Yeah, and things like the change curve, many clients know, and so they'll mention it, and there's an immediate question, which is, well, where are you on it, and where would you like to be? Yeah.
Do we want to move into the breakout groups?
I think we do. Well,
I know
stop.
Jan had her hand up, and I'm wondering if you could hold it, mostly, Jan.
Sure.
So that we could do the breakout groups and then hold it and come back with that at the end. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
If I remember, of course.
we've got a little slide about what we'd like you to do in the breakout group.
And I think you're going to show the slide while I talk about it. So you're going to be...
Providing it's whizzing on as it should be doing.
Okay.
There we go. Here it is.
So you're going to be in trios. You may well have done this in coach training, where one of you is the coach, one is the client, and one is the observer. And we're only going to do it one way round. If you want to do it all three ways round, you'll have to go and do that outside. So here is our thing telling you what you're going to talk about. What we would ask is that the observer absolutely does some drawing. So the observer is drawing, mapping, sketching, mark making, something visual about what they are hearing and noticing. And we're asking you to do it that way because we don't want to force the coach and the client to do this work. We want it to be natural. However, we do encourage the coach and the client to think, would this be useful? What could I do here that would be useful? And I think we can only leave 10 minutes for this, Sarah. Yeah, I think so. I can't see Sarah now. So
I think they're probably going to need 12 minutes, Jenny.
Okay, so it's just under 10 minutes. So it's maybe 9 minutes to do a piece of work. And then it's just a few minutes to have a quick talk to each other about what happened. And then we're going to bring you back into the main group so that we can see what people gained from that piece of practice and what observations you then have about using these visual methods. Anything else we need to say before they go into breakout, Sarah?
If anyone wants to save this slide to their own computer so they can refer to it when they're in the breakout room, you've got two ways of doing it. One is doing a print screen, and the other is going to the view option at the top of your screen. View options, it gives you annotate. And if you click on annotate, then you can get a save icon as well, and it will save in a folder and you can open that. But probably you've looked at it for long enough to remember it as a guideline. I think Anastasia is putting you in groups.
Okay.
So, 12 minutes in the group, if you can do that, Anastasia. Those will not be recorded either because we can't record breakout groups. So it's entirely confidential. And when you come back, you will not be talking about the client's content.
And I think both of you might be transferred to some of them.
Okay, so we'll come out again. We'll come out again. And if the numbers aren't even, you'll have to manipulate it.
Okay, I'm going to put the 3 rooms. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
I think here we go.
So am I needed in room 3, Anastasia, to make the numbers up?
No, both of you don't really have to join your.
Okay, thanks.
So I just didn't join, so they'll be in 3s without us.
Yeah.
Because you can move people from one to the other, can't you, if you need to get 3s into the group? Yeah. Perfect.
No, some are not joining yet, so I don't know why.
You stop. Stop the
I'm going to
screen
stop. I'm about to, Jenny.
Perfect. Thank you.
Natalia, Nathalie Weister hasn't joined yet. Let me move to breakout room number 2.
Now you're going to be able to go to one, Anastasia.
I think that's it. Now we have 3 people in each of them. And some got scared and left.
Oh, really?
Natalie, could you turn your sound on and tell us what's going on? You haven't gone to a group.
Maybe Natalie isn't there.
Yeah, that's possibly what.
So are you joining a group, Anastasia?
Yeah. And then I just want to make sure that you guys would be able to tell them to broadcast the message. Do you see this message, broadcast the message to all?
No.
Let me just put it here. Coming back at 2:20.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, yeah.
Brilliant. Well done, Anastasia. Then when you come back, if they don't come back, you can close them.
Okay, thank you. That was incredible, by the way. Thank you.
So you go to one. Perfect.
So I think Natalie must have taken a break from the webinar.
Looks like it.
Mm.
And she may not, and she may still hear us, so we'll just be conscious of that. Poor 15 dogs may be an audience in Natalie's room. It was a lovely piece of work.
Oh, Jenny.
It was. I was particularly struck by one, I mean, well, I struck by lots of interventions, but the one I particularly liked was, and there were several running up to it that were very wonderful. And if I don't show you, how else might you find that? I thought that was wonderful. A lovely thing. And how are we for time? Because
we will have 10 minutes left when they get back.
okay, so let's have a look at
really, we just ask them for their feedback, don't we? And their question and answers. That's what it is now.
I would like to ask who drew or mapped or something, and see a show of hands. That would be nice.
I think I think they've asked some of the questions, or we've covered some of the things that are often covered in questions.
Yeah. Do we want a show of something about who drew? I mean, the interesting question is, what did you learn from either drawing or seeing a drawing, isn't it?
I think so, really. And what insight did you get?
Yeah.
What insights, plural, did you get from whatever visual process there was?
That's lovely. What insights did you get from whatever visual process?
And then you can ask that to all the participants at the same time, rather than going around.
Yeah, we always have time to go around. Do you want a show of hands or not? What insights did you get from?
No, I think I'd rather just ask people to put stuff in.
When you say put stuff in, do you mean in the chat or in the conversation?
Well, they could do either, couldn't they?
Yes, they could.
Then we get
both, so we get rich source of information.
Exactly, we get layers of info. I might just take a mini break and come back.
Feel free. You've got 6 minutes.
Thanks, Jenny.
You're welcome. Natalie, can you turn your mic on so I can speak to you? You and I are the only people in the main room.
Sure, no problem.
Okay. Oh, I can see you as well.
Sorry about that. I got a work call that was unexpected, and then of course it was right when you were doing the breakout. So I had to take it in.
Anastasia did the breakouts, and so I don't think I can do anything with them. If you click on, you should have 3 dots at the bottom of your screen which says more. So along the icons on the bottom, have you got breakout rooms? I wonder if I can
Join. Oh, I think I have. Yes, there's one that says join breakout room.
Okay, so you can sneak into the back of the room. They've only got about 4 minutes left, so you'll just get a tiny bit of observation.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See you back here soon.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
She got a work call just at the point when we were doing the breakout rooms.
And it's occurred to me that we could have gone on mute and set up a WhatsApp if we'd wanted to. WhatsApp call.
But that was fine. I don't think we need it. Although I have a piece of learning for our process, which is that we need in advance to tell. That's not happened to us in Europe, has it? We need to tell people the protocol, which is that cameras are on when we're in the plenary.
Yeah.
Unless you've got severe technological difficulties.
So we need to say that at the beginning. I mean, say that to the organizer.
We need to say it to the organizer before we start, don't we?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think it's become, over this time, it's become an assumption in the UK and actually probably in Europe, because nobody I'm working with leaves their, in any group, I think leaves their camera off. So, and also I've heard there's been quite a big discussion about how that feels and because we have that discussion it has been going on in the group we've been doing the team coaching with, hasn't it? What happens if you leave the camera?
The EY webinars are never with the camera on.
Really? Well, there's a different format, isn't there?
Well, I think it's using Teams. So there's a presenting team and you see their pictures, but nobody else gets to look at it.
Zoom's
then there's a load of people.
Yeah, and Zoom's got that mode as well, presenting mode, because Jonathan
It does.
Ashon-Lamptey uses that mode for the book club. Cool. I think it's called webinar mode. I've never used it. So they're going to be back in 2 minutes.
2 minutes, and we're going to ask them that question.
What insights did you get from whatever visual process there was? And yeah.
And then
we'll be out of time.
We will be out of time, and we just want to show that, and we want them to put some things about what their top takeaway is in the chat. Now, which bit are you going to do, and which bit am I going to do of that?
What's your preference?
I think I'll ask them about what insights they got from whatever visual process, and you ask them for their top takeaways, and then I'll get the slide that has. In fact, I can now move to the slide, our end slide. I can get that ready. And
I'll sort of come in at 2 minutes to, I think. I mean, in the question and answer, we might both do bits anyway, but there won't be very much time.
No, there won't. Oh, no.
Okay, I'll stop talking because I got excited.
If I can pull that up quickly. What were you getting excited about?
Oh, fantastic extra neuroscience bits. What a good egg that man is. I need a script if I've got to do that bit, because I'm looking at him and going, well, I can't do this bit now.
He didn't give me a script, but we had a long conversation. And
no, but you've made a sort of script.
Yes.
I saw you move your paper.
So I did print out some key points, and I printed out all the slides and made sure I was in the right place.
Really useful.
It was very useful, because basically what we've been saying is right, and it was adding extra complexities, more understanding, more metaphors.
It was very refined, very, very much refined, I thought. So it was our message, but refined and with brain naming. And I think it's quite important to keep popping the bubble of the left and right brain, because people are still talking about it quite a lot. And I find myself often say, well, I think that's, I think we've moved on from that thinking. Hello, here they come. And there's Natalie. Hooray! And Paula, I like seeing all these people. Keep your cameras on. And Meredith coming back, and who else?
I gave them 40 seconds, so they would be automatically have to come
Yeah,
back.
They'd be kicked out of their breakout rooms, won't they?
And it's, we notice this all the time. Sometimes as soon as that you're going to close in 40 seconds happens, people click leave and arrive, and then go, oh, I've come back already. So that's...
I do have to get going. I have a hard 2:30, so I need a few minutes to prepare before. But this has been wonderful, and I thank you so much.
Thank you. Meredith, I'm going to ask you the thing I would ask at 2 minutes too, and that is, please, will you put in chat what your top takeaway is? I'll be asking everybody that just as they're leaving. And
Okay,
then we'll ask people to save chat and we'll see what people's top learning was.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And here comes everyone.
Here comes
Hello.
everybody else. Hello. Welcome back. So it would be really lovely if you shared your cameras again, if you feel able to. So it really feels as though we're a group having a conversation for the last few minutes that we're together.
Do we have one group that's not come back, Anastasia, or have we just lost
a few, people? I think, along the way, possibly.
Lost in translation.
Yeah, because usually some people can only commit for an hour.
Yeah.
It's in the middle of a lunch break, so that's what happened.
Okay.
So to everyone else, thank you for staying with us. And we'd like to invite you to share whatever insights, the key insights that you got from whatever visual processing there was in your group. And you could share this verbally by saying hi, or by putting your hand up and speaking, or by putting it in the chat.
And we would love to hear from a couple of people. What were your insights from whatever visual process there was? I see people thanking each other in chat, and you could put something about your insights.
So here's top learning is how powerful. So Meredith put something in chat, and we've heard that Meredith has to go right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. So would somebody like to talk about their top learning from that visual process, whatever it was?
I found it interesting how it made me concentrate and be more present as the observer and trying to translate it into a drawing.
Interesting. I see Chris nodding there.
Felt that way too, as the observer.
I'm curious, Jimmy was the observer. I'm just curious if he will share some of that. I don't know if that's part of the exercise.
I can show you what I drew from the.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what were your insights from drawing that?
Well, some of it came from Pedro's original image that he had drawn during the demo session, and so some of it was the maze and him jumping, basically trying to shortcut to his place of, I don't know what's going on, I don't know if I love this or not, to his sense of joy. And there were just some things that he had mentioned about how this session is sort of almost like a jumping off point, because it's his first session back, and it's dynamic and moving, and he's looking for a challenge. And in fact, Chris asked a great question: what's the first step you can do? And he started talking about a training session that he has coming up. And so it was really interesting to watch the movement forward and see how how the coach and the client work together. And it was kind of fun drawing the picture too, as an observer. I don't know that I could do it as coach or client in the situation, but as a third party, it made it a little bit easier to do.
And Pedro, did you draw too?
Yeah, well, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Jimmy. Thank you so much. Yeah, because during the session with Amelia was like kind of resonating me some things, and something really, really interesting. I draw a direct line between me and this my ideal situation. But with a very good question that Chris asked me, that direct line is not where I was thinking that it was. See what I mean? So I was thinking like, okay, go for it or go directly. But this is it's more related to accomplishment. Like something I have to really end and for instance, bring into my training sessions more creativity, and like doing, okay, I finally did the perfect session for me. I mean, I'm not talking about the perfect session. Like that's something I want to really have done for real, not just in my head, or not just something thinking, okay, I'll do that tomorrow. So that direct line is the main result for that wonderful session with Chris, is that direct line is accomplishment.
Now, what I'm hearing as an image is that it somehow cut through your thinking because you had the visual in front of you.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, at the beginning, I mean, my first lines was amazed, as Jimmy said, and like with a lot of lines, and I made this direct line, and I showed that to Chris, and she asked me that deep question, like, okay, but what is that, or it seems that you have that clear. And that question was like all the whole castle stumble. See what I mean?
So there are two things that are coming up from me from what you said. One is that just a simple line can represent a rich, complex idea or concept. And also how useful it is when people are searching for words. And I remember coaching a Japanese client, and she didn't speak English terribly well, and she was really searching to articulate what she wanted. I asked her what would happen if she mapped out the relationships, and she went home and started doing this, and brought back a huge piece of paper to the next session on which she'd mapped out lots of relationships, and she talked to me about it in Japanese. And got her clarity through doing that. And only occasionally did I ask her prompting questions. And her hands were moving all over the diagram as she talked. So it was very interesting.
And it sounds as though Chris did that very clean question thing about what's that. We don't have to have complex questions when we've got the visual.
You can just say, what's that? And I noticed that that's here and that's there. Is that where you want them to be in relationship to each other?
Absolutely.
We've probably got time just for one more quick insight from whatever mapping or drawing took place.
Yeah, I want to apologize, but I really will have to go. I want to thank you all.
As
It's been amazing.
As people leave, please put your top learning in chat or send us your top learning afterwards. What's your top takeaway for your own practice, for your learning from this conversation?
Yeah.
We might ask you all to do that now in case anyone else has to go. We have 1 minute left.
I think that's it. If everyone puts that top insight or top learning in the chat, it would be great.
Thank you. And of course, you can save the chat so you'll see everybody else's top piece of learning. Yeah. Thank you, Pedro. I see yours, and thank you, Laura. And we also ought to say that there are loads of drawings in this. Sarah's going to put up the last slide, which Anastasia will share. There is a drawing on every page. If you're going to get hold of a copy, we suggest not getting a Kindle or ebook because you won't be able to see all the drawings at the same time as the writing. And coaches tell us they take this with them, they dip into it for inspiration.
Oh, I really like your comment, Natalie. Thank you. Stop separating my creative instincts from my coaching skills.
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you for all these things that are coming up. Please put something about your top learning, because if you write it down, it embeds it for you. It's been a pleasure to work with you. Thank you for taking time when you might have been having your lunch.
And I think we're going to send through some of the key slides, are we, Jenny?
I think we are.
With the discounts.
Yeah.
As a PDF. Yeah.
Yeah, the one with the discount on it from Routledge, sometimes known as Taylor and Francis. I don't know what they're known as in the States.
Thank you so much, Jenny and Sarah. And I just wanted to add, because this way I usually use for the perspective exercise. Go up, go, look at the left, describe what you feel, where you are, then look to the right, describe where you want to be, and then what is the terrain. And now it seems like the images that you described is the perfect fit, that like an additional tool that you can put there, because usually I was only working with the visual images that I in your head, but now it's exactly, you can also do it this way to turn on this other creative side. So thank you for this.
Yeah, and the whole brain is actually engaged in the creativity, not just half of it. And they've got something which they can take and see again.
And Jan, earlier on, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if you think what this does is in some way bypasses the guards that as adults we put up for ourselves and takes us back to childhood, where it was so easy to access the scribbling or the drawing and somehow take those images and be able to see our thoughts more clearly.
I think there's probably quite a lot in that, and maybe it also connects us with play. And when we play, we're likely to be more relaxed, and therefore our ideas will flow more easily.
And if some of those guards are about things like what's polite to say and what I should think, and I mustn't be rude about that person, that kind of guard, of course we don't have to say it. We know that that's what's in the image. So there may be something in it about helping us feel safe as well.
Yeah. Thank you. It was quite wonderful. And I think that if you put a tape out for sleep, like in the beginning, you said, now look within yourselves, and you could put just us very calm and go to sleep at night more easily.
Well, you can just play that bit of the recording over and over again on a loop. I'm going to tell my family that somebody said I could lull them to sleep, because that's not how they experience me. Because Sarah has shared hotel rooms all over Europe with me, and I don't think she's ever proud of it.
Oh no, we had separate ones in Latvia.
We did have separate ones in Latvia. That was good, wasn't it? That was luxurious.
Well, your voices are wonderful. That's what I'd say. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to work with you all. Thank you very much. It's time, isn't it? But thank you. So anyone wants the discount code, if you happen to want one of our books, it's Fly21. So I haven't even done share screen on this. I think it's just going to have to come out. I feel as though I don't want to share the screen at the end, because it's just so nice to see everyone's faces to say goodbye.
Absolutely.
But if I send it to you, and maybe Anastasia can share it.
Yes.
Well, we could put it in the chat as well, couldn't we?
We could. I could, and then people can save chat, but it will be on the slide. Amelia and Zena, are you going to show us your faces to wave goodbye as we all close? Oh, we love to see people. Hello. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
So I think we are probably finished. Don't you, Sarah?
I think we are, yeah. Does anyone else want, I mean, we don't mind staying a minute or two, but we don't want to hold anyone here because we think that you have to go.
Yeah, she's put the discount code in.
I want to say thank you, Sarah, Jenny, and everybody else in the room still. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us today. And Jenny and Sarah, thank you very much for accommodating our time schedule. And we're super excited. I took a lot away from this, and this was really, really fun. I think everybody enjoyed it. We love the whole sketching and drawing part about pulling another part of the brain into this thing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, enjoy the experimentation and the journey.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anastasia, for all the organising.
I'll hear from you.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.